Welcome to my YouTube channel, Boss Strength. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Art Boss. I am an NSCA certified personal trainer, a certified strongman trainer, and a strongman competitor on the national level for over 12 years. I'd just like to thank you for tuning in, and I just have one favor to ask of you, and that's to smash that subscribe button and hit the bell notification so I can get all my videos out to you right away, and you can stay motivated and informed in the coming year and take your training to the next level. Today I'm going to bring you an exercise that I've been using for over 10 years to safely train men, women, and children of all ages. Regardless of whether your goal is to get lean, gain strength, or just get into better physical shape, this exercise will complement your training program. It's a unique compound movement that utilizes an explosive ankle, knee, and hip movement referred to as a triple extension to develop functional strength like no other exercise that I know of. So whether you're an athlete or a stay-at-home mom, this exercise is for you. So get ready for new gains not only in your back, but your legs, arms, and core too, because this hits them all. Welcome to the Stones. Step 1, the lap. As we approach the stone, we're going to draw an imaginary center line through the left to right through the mid-center. Now, that line is going to make it possible for us to properly set our hands and set our feet to the stone so we can minimize the adjustments made during the lift. Economy of effort is critical in strongman events. We don't want to reposition ourselves with the stone in our lap. It's a little awkward, can be a little uncomfortable, and lose a lot of energy and a lot of time. So setup is critical, and in this phase of the lap position, we're going to try to minimize those adjustments. So again, a visual line left to right through the center of the stone as we approach it. Then our feet are going to go right up to that line, leaving just enough room for our hands to get in the center, inside of our feet to the stone. So we want our toes just slightly past that center line, leaving just enough room for our hands to get between the feet and the stone. Now, some people like an open hand, some people like a closed hand when they grip the stone. I prefer a closed hand, and I usually rock the stone to set one hand under the stone so I can be sure and have a good grip on the bottom without losing that grip as I load it. So again, center line, toes just slightly past center, hands following that center line right down to the center of the stone on the bottom, and set. Now why that's important is if we have our hands in front of that line as we lift up, we're going to lose the stone between our legs. If we have our hands behind the center line as we lift up, we're going to lose the stone in front of us. It's going to roll away from us. So that's why it's critical to get our hand position just correct and our feet position, because we don't want to make adjustments mid-lift. So again, in this phase, step 1, the lap, we want to draw that imaginary line through the center. Our toes just slightly past that center line, leaving just enough room for our hands to get inside our feet to the stone. We want to come down and we want to set our hands on the bottom. And like I said, I rock it to set my hands on one side, either left or right, under the stone. You just want to be careful of that because it can pinch your fingers, and I'm kind of used to it, so that's why I get away with it. But you want to be careful. And then using straight arms, we're going to lift up using a stiff leg deadlift pretty much. It's called a hip hinge, and it's one of our most powerful lifts, engaging the hips and just lifting through the hip joint up and loading the stone into our lap. So again, center line, toes just slightly beyond that center line, leaving just enough room for our hands to hug that center line down, set our hands, and then using straight arms, and a hip hinge, we're going to load the stone into our lap. Again, one more time, center line, toes just slightly beyond center, our hands hugging that center line right down to the bottom as far as we can get our hands, gripping it, with straight arms and a hip hinge, load it into the lap. And that sets us up for step 2, the load. Step 2 is the load portion of the stone lift. And that's really our power position. Now it's just, we've really taken the time to set up our feet, our hands, got the stone into our lap. Now we're ready to load the stone. So what we want to do is, just as when we were in driver's ed, they taught us to put our hand position at 10 and 2 on the wheel. We want to come over top of the stone and put our hands in 10 and 2 position and set our hands on the far side of the stone, pull it into our chest using upper back power, and set the stone there. Because when we thrust up using explosive ankle, knee, and hip extension, we're going to need that stone to stay on our chest so we can load it properly. So again, once we get it into lap position, we're going to come over top, set our hands at 10 and 2, pull it to our chest, and we want it as high on our chest as possible so we can drive our hips under it freely and load it to the bar or the platform, whichever the case may be. So what we're going to do is get it back into the lap position, setting our feet, setting our hands, driving it up. Now we want to get it to the chest, and 10 and 2, it's a little harder on a smaller stone to set the hands properly, but pull the stone to the chest and then lock it there, so when we drive up, we want to pull our head up and look up because our body will follow the head, and just drive our hips through using an explosive ankle, knee, and hip extension and load the stone. Just like that. So pull it tight, lock it, head up. And that's step 2. And that about does it for today. I just want to go over a couple key points to make sure that you have a successful stone loading experience. Number 1 is always train the stones warm. Do a full body warm up and make sure just your buys and your back are thoroughly warm before you attempt to lift the stones. Number 2, always raise your head before you load the stone. Your body follows your head, and that will ensure a successful load. Number 3, never re-grip the stone in the air, always from the lap position. So you want to take the tension off your biceps before you go to re-grip, and that's from the lap position, always when the stone is in your lap. Number 4, always give yourself the day off prior to working the stones, at least 2 days or even better. And that way you're fully rested and your nervous system is ready for the taxation that the stones will deliver. And number 5, always seek medical clearance before you start any physical program. And that's about it. So I want to thank you for tuning in. And as always, train like a boss.